You want to turn it on and give them something to look at?
Yeah. Alright. Guys, we are going live. Finally. So, we're sitting here. I'm Silence, in case you didn't know. This is JWO. A little bit about us, in case you don't know. I've been kind of the de facto head of the Seattle Tekken Syndicate since the dawn of Tekken 6 era.
El Presidente.
El Presidente. Yeah, and this guy over here, a lot of you might not know him, but he was an old school Tekken player back when I first started doing sessions at my house, right before Tekken 6 dropped on consoles. This guy showed up randomly because I advertised it, and he promptly beat the shit out of me all the time.
That was a while ago.
That was a while ago. Back then I thought I was really good, and this guy showed me that I had a long ways to go.
Yeah, pretty healthy when you can find somebody to give you, show you the ropes. And for me, that was Dustin and Eddie. Back when I played Tekken 5, I remember getting into a furiously hot debate with Eddie on Tekken Zaibatsu about the practical uses of Snake Edge. My logic was, it's like a reversal, right? Because it'll go under their high, and if you hit them with it, we're talking, 90% of their health bar if you hit a wall, right? Brian was cheap back then. Yeah, things changed when I finally got to a session with Eddie. Yeah. More on that later.
Yeah, alright. But anyways, we're going to be talking about the art of movement is what I titled this. I'm going to be trying to come up with catchy titles for all of my stuff. Don't know how successful I'll be. I came up with this last night at 11:30 p.m. But I've been planning on doing stuff like this for a while. But we're going to be talking about movement in Tekken. Yeah, so I guess first off we should talk about why movement is important in Tekken. Yeah, because it's really a large part of the game. Depending on how you move, you can do things like avoid attacks or assert pressure. Pretty much all the top players you talk to will say movement is at least 50% part of the game. Some people say upwards of 80.
I think where you see those kinds of numbers is when you pair a player who is savvy with their movement against one that might not be. You can do your homework, you can study frames, you can learn your combos, but if you play against somebody with a really spectacular movement, you'll feel it instantly. You won't be able to do what you want to do in match, and they'll be able to control it. And I think the strength of movement becomes much more apparent when you scale up in competition. I think and you get better and better. So it's good to start early.
Yeah. So anyways, movement is primarily how you control the space between you and your opponent. So if you can backdash away from them, you can make them whiff, or you can move forward and assert some pressure. Make them think you're going to attack. You can also sidestep around, because this is a 3D fighting game, and you can make linear attacks whiff. It's also one of the safest defensive options you can do, just because if you can make it so they can't hit you, then it's pretty good. And there's very little risk involved in moving. As long as you're holding back, just straight holding back, then you are blocking. You do incur some risk when you do sidestep because you're not holding back. But you can cancel your sidesteps really fast by holding back, so you can just do a short sidestep and block if you need to.
You can do the same thing with forward movement as well. You can press into them, and if you see them try to stuff you out, you can immediately hit back, and mitigate some of that risk if they've got fast reflexes or they're just sticking things out that have more range than you expected.
All right, so if you're moving well, there's very little risk in it. Yeah, and then the other important aspect of movement is the fact that if you're not in range, you can't land your attacks. So, if I'm like jabbing out here, they're not going to hit, but I can dash forward and jab and hit them. So
Yeah. Dashing forward also realigns your character. So if the opponent's using a lot of sidewalking of their own or movement in that regard, you can even make your 1-2 track if you dash deep enough or after they had started their sidewalk animation, you can dash forward and it realigns your character and can add a lot.
Let's get you on. Need to,
Oh, is it options?
no, you need to home
sync
button.
up.
Sync up.
Actually. I just sign on to yours?
Yeah. Just needs to be a user. Get your Nina.
Oh, did I jacked your character? I did. What do I do?
Alright, well anyways, I guess we're playing opposite sides now. Alright, but anyways, so the basic movement options are, you've got, holding forward, holding back, tapping up, tapping down, gets you your basic lateral, basic movements. If you're holding forward, you can move forward pretty fast, but if you're holding back, you move back slowly. Better in Tekken 7 than it was in previous games, but you can tap back twice to backdash, and you move back initially a bit faster, but then you kind of stop.
And it's also important to know that you can block during that backdash, even if your character's hopping, you can't really get caught. You do still have to choose between low, mid, mix-ups if they dash deep into your character and do a low. Oh, kind of hurts on. Maybe do you want to go to the main menu and maybe try to?
You're controlled and everything.
Okay.
So go to other settings, R1. That's it. There we go.
Yeah. So if for example, I think you want to do like backdashes real quick. So if I run in and I can't force hits to happen during the timing of his actual backdash. I can still mix them up, but he can still block low at any point during that backdash as well. So even if you don't have the dexterity to do repeated Korean backdash cancels, you can still hold back and it'll block during any point in the backdash itself. So,
yeah. And then there's also a difference between sidestepping and sidewalking. So if you sidestep, you just tap up or down once and you do a quick step. But if you tap up and then go back to neutral and then hit up again, you start walking continuously in a direction. Or you can do the same thing with down. So that's down twice and hold the second one, or up twice and hold the second one. You can sidewalk around some things you can't sidestep because you move a bit farther. But as you're sidewalking, you're not blocking unless you choose to cancel sidewalking and hold back. But yeah, so anyways, earlier we were doing backdash canceling. The one we were doing was the Korean backdash canceling. It's the most efficient way of doing it because it provides the least amount of vulnerability when you cancel it with the down back. But it's also very execution heavy, and it takes a while to get that practice built up. One of the things I like to teach people initially is kind of a different way of backdash canceling. It's called the stair step cancel. It's a bit slower and a bit more vulnerable, but it's a lot easier to do. So the idea behind that is you just backdash once and then you sidestep by tapping down, then you backdash again. So it looks kind of like this. And that's really easy to do. You can pick that up in 10-15 minutes and start using it in game. And it's really effective to create space when you don't have the Korean backdash canceling.
An interesting thing about canceling movement is that it's not very timing sensitive. So at virtually any point during any movement at all, your character can cancel it into another directional. So when you're doing this backdash that you're just canceling into sidestep, you don't really have to worry about timing so much. You just want to make sure that your inputs are precise and that they're happening, right? But you can do it late. You can do it super fast. You'll move less, because it'll be canceling a little bit early. But when you do movement cancels in Tekken, it's not very picky about when you input your backs or your side steps. And also, it's not very picky about inputting a move out of any of this movement. So we talk all the time about canceling backdashes into themselves for backdash canceling or backdash into sidestep. But you can also, cancel it back into like standing 4 keep out moves, and the game isn't going to, cause you any grief. You can fire off moves at any point during your movement. So that's also important to keep in mind. There are moves that are specific to sidesteps. So for example, Nina, I can do backdash standing 2. This isn't very practical, but I can't do sidestep standing 2 unless I do a sidestep and then push back. So because it's a sidestep move and it's built in, right? But other than that, it doesn't give you any limiting factors on what you cancel into what. It can be movement, it can be, any directional, it can be any attack.
Yeah, so you can cancel the sidestep with back or forward.
That's true, yeah.
All right, so we got question from DT Flip. When you pick a direction, left or right for stepping, is it largely character based or is any direction safer? So I'm assuming you're talking whether you're stepping like into the background or into the foreground. The character's left or right, not left or right on the screen. Yeah, so it's certain characters track better in certain ways. Like the Mishimas, like the Hayachi, it's generally a better idea to step to their left, or your left, their right, because that's one of the few ways that you'll get around an electric. It's not going to happen.
Yeah, we'd have to do it at a block stun or something like that.
Yeah, here, because I mean it tracks really well, but you can step it to your left, their right, and that's just one of the things that you're going to have to discover or learn or ask about. There's a document out there for Tag 2 where one of the Koreans said how he likes to step the various characters, but I don't have that handy.
It's also kind of a dangerous thing to get into a mode of only stepping in one direction. I know that if I'm playing and I notice somebody has a tendency to step one direction or another, I'm much more likely to want to do moves that I know specifically track in that direction. I also think that what comes naturally at first is definitely sidestepping into the background. I think it's very... you can do it from crouch as well. So say for example, you want to just do like a down 4 or something. So like after blocking a down 4, I can easily sidewalk into the background, but you can't sidewalk into the foreground because your character is ducking, right? So there's things like that will also play a role. So in when you decide on which direction you want to move your character, their positioning has a pretty big impact on that decision. Walls, of course, if you've got a wall in the background, even if you're concerned about an enemy's tracking as being stronger to your left or his right, depending on how you look at it, you may still favor sidewalking into the foreground to get away from a wall and then canceling that into a block, to get out of that wall situation. So there's a lot of factors that'll go into, choosing what direction you want to sidewalk in.
And we'll talk about some of those a bit later. But one caveat on the blocking from crouch, in Tekken 7 online, both players can play on the left-hand side or on the right-hand side. And so if you're playing someone online, they might be able to step down from crouch from your point of view, because from their point of view, they're going to be stepping up.
Their applications are extremely minimal, so I don't think any particular nasty setups have been found for that.
Just something to keep in mind on that.
Sure.
So then we needed to talk about the Korean backdash. We'll talk about inputs on that, but we're not going to go into too much detail on that. So the Korean backdash, what it is you start off by doing one backdash, and then you hold down back to go into crouch, go into neutral, and then back again. So you can do it kind of slow.
And you can see I inputted a couple Korean backdashes on the command history. So at the end there, you can see 3 of them, and you'll notice
you'll see them right there.
Yes, and you'll notice that there aren't any what you would I don't know, I use like the word artifacts or like visual artifacts. Anyway, you don't see any breaking in it. Ooh, a follow.
Yeah, we got a follow. Thank you, Gara Girl, for the follow. Gara Girl. I don't know how you pronounce that.
But when you input these backdashes properly in your command history, you're not going to see any extra lefts or extra rights, depending on what side you're on. As opposed to if you do kind of the less efficient version. You want to talk about that real quick?
Oh yeah, here's the.
I can't do it with Nina. She is this way.
Yeah. There's the it's called the bastardized Korean backdash, where you just do quarter circle backs. And so you start off with the backdash like normal, and you do quarter circle backs. I've never learned how to do it.
Yeah, I can do it really well on stick.
Yeah, so we're gonna.
So yeah, you can still get quite a bit of distance, but there's an extra. You can't see it on the screen, unfortunately, because this is 2-player. But there's like a slight window where you're able to get hit during the quarter circle back, which can be pretty relevant. I think it's still pretty reasonable to do these backdashes.
Yeah, except it doesn't work with Nina, Paul, and Brian.
Right. Any character that has a back sway, because you're doing that quarter circle back, you're going to end up with that back sway motion. But for Mishima's, another reason that it can be kind of comfortable is because you'll spend a lot of time practicing wave dashing. So it's very natural, especially as a stick player, to go onto the other side and then just wave dash backwards. Right, if you're wave dashing backwards, this is the backdash animation. You can see it looks pretty clean, and it creates a lot of space. It just kind of leaves you slightly less efficient in terms of your defense.
Alright, so anyways, Brett Coast asked, is this tutorial segment going to become a regular recurring part of your streams? Yes, that's the idea. I want to be able to do this more often. I'm not sure if I'll be able to do it every week, like how Mr. Henry wanted, because there's usually a lot of prep involved in getting some of the stuff set up. So I will try to. I'll post up about them when I do them. So keep an eye out for them.
And on that note, I think the more support, the more viewership, the much more fired up we get about doing any kind of educational content.
Yeah, that's definitely.
Support means a lot. It validates your efforts and makes you want to do more. So spread the word.
Yeah. All right. So then we're gonna talk after the Korean backdash things. At some point we'll probably do a more detailed tutorial on the Korean backdash, but unless you already can do the Korean backdash, start with the stair-step method, which was the back, side, step, back. And then once you get to the point where you want to spend the 100 or so hours it takes to get good at the Korean backdash, then go ahead and do that. But it's probably, would you say, a good 100 hours to get good at it?
I lost track of time when I first learned. I was so after seeing Eddie backdash for the first time, because Dustin's backdash wasn't fantastic. Eddie had a super clean one, and after I saw that, I knew that I could not wait another minute. I had to learn it. So I hours upon hours, and it's also, especially if you play on stick, it's side dependent. Your hand motions, we're not going to be able to probably show a good example, but they're plastered all over YouTube. You can find them everywhere. But the hand motions are actually different on stick. Your wrist will play a very big role in backdash canceling on the right, whereas backdashing on the left is almost all finger control. With a pad, you're getting the motions strictly with your thumb, and while the motions might change slightly, they both feel pretty similar. But yeah, it takes a lot of practice for sure.
Right. Whereas the stair-step method, 20 minutes of practice and you're good.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Mustaine, a lot of people have made videos on it, so they're out there. Just look for KB K.
KBC.
KBC.
Like mentioned here, Knee made a really good one. My favorite one is just JDCRs, and you can just Google it. I'm sure. I mean, YouTube it. It's just like JDCR movement or JDCR hands, I think it is, and he covers all the movement, not just wave dashing and back dashing. So that's pretty nice. You know, they do it in slow motion. I noticed Katy Perry FGC in the chat. I was curious. Did I teach you a Steve combo online? Is he from Washington?
You know, I actually don't know.
I know Katy Perry FGC told me he was out, I believe, in the Midwest, but I have a sneaking suspicion that I may have taught him a Steve combo. He caught me on Flo's stream.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, Flo tried to take me out with a down back 3 with Howrong, and I could see it, and I up forward 2'd it, and then did this big old combo. It was fun. Yeah. What a coincidence! It's nice to meet you. Thanks for tuning in.
Nice.
Yeah.
Alright, so anyways, moving on to some lesser used movement options. This next one we're going to be talking about isn't as useful in Tekken 7 as it used to be in earlier versions, but it was just like if you do multiple quarter circles from back to down, you can do
turbo step.
Yeah, you can do turbo steps. They look kind of cool. You can also do it going up.
I like mixing the two. You know, this doesn't look so good on Nina because she's so thin of stature, but on bigger characters, it's really fun to do these double, movements.
But because the sidestep comes out a bit slower at first and then speeds up, it's not quite as evasive as it used to be.
Right, and pretty much every application, I think that just a plain sidewalk will move more and dodge more and evade more.
You might have seen those in older videos, especially in older games. That's what that is. But don't worry too much about it right now unless you find a use for it. Yeah, so then some of the characters have a thing called a wave dash, which is one thing we can use to close distance. Like the Mishimas all have it. You can do it like this. It's just repeated crouch dashes right in front of each other.
Let's show a crouch dash by itself. Just forward, and the big point for me is the neutral and how clean your forward is when you're canceling the first crouch dash. That was always a big one for me learning wave dashing.
Yeah, and that's wave dashing is another 50 hours of practice. And that's also on top of needing to learn how to do all the variants of electrics. But that's for a Mishima tutorial, but that's just an option. And then sometimes, occasionally, you want to just like hold up back to jump backwards. It's useful when you're in a mix-up situation where they're gonna do like either a slow low or a fast mid that doesn't have a lot of range. So you can use that as an option. It's not going to be very useful, but...
Evan, you were mentioning earlier characters like Yoshimitsu, where you have a very practical application for jumping back. I think that's the best time. Want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so Yoshimitsu's got an unblockable low. That's a combo starter, and it tracks really well for some reason.
Sword sweep.
Yeah, it's called the sword sweep. So if you're playing against the Yoshimitsu that likes to abuse that, jumping back is a good option because it will avoid a lot of his options for mixing that up too.
Yeah. I definitely wouldn't just be jumping back trying to beat random mix-ups, but if you know of a specific one where you know that jumping backwards does a good job of addressing it and its mix-ups, I think there is some utility there to discover for sure.
The two exceptions are Akuma and Eliza. They always have a reason to back dash or back jump because of their fireballs and dive kicks.
Right.
Yeah, but those are more on character-specific stuff. Anyways, now that we've covered options for moving, we wanted to talk about how you decide to move. Like, why would you do the movement that you are doing? So one of the first things that is it's really useful, and this is useful for more than just movement, is when you're playing, don't look at your own character, because you should know what your character is doing and where they're at just based on what you're doing. Look at your opponent's character, because you don't know what they're going to be doing, and you're going to need to know what they're doing in order to be able to decide what to do. So yeah, that's super important. I know a lot of people have a tendency to look at their character and then just get hit by stuff because they weren't looking at the other character.
Right.
So that a lot of what we're going to talk about is dependent on you knowing what the opponent is doing.
Information in, you got to use your eyes to take in the information. You're going to get that information from your opponent, and then you use it to make a decision. It could be a simple one like block low or block mid, or it could be more about movement, sidewalking, backdashing. But if you're not getting that visual input immediately because you're busy looking at your character or you're distracted by something, I know a lot of fighting game players tend to look around, especially after they get thrown. They don't absorb as much information as they probably should be. I pay attention to the walls and character for sure.
All right. So so one of the things that you can do with it, you can decide to do with movement is try to stay out of your opponent's range. Like a character like Nina does really good when she's in your face because she's got really great fast pokes. But once you get away from her, she's got to take a lot more risks in order to hit you. So what you can do is you can move out of the opponent's range and try to whiff punish them. So if they throw out a move, you can just hit them. So like throw out like a down back 2 or something like that. So she's backing away, and I can't electric. Yeah, there you go. And then you get a big punish off of that whiff. And that's one of the things that's one of Nina's moves that she uses at range because it's a good ranged move. But if you can stay out of its range, then you can bait the whiff. You can also, if you're up and closer, and she like whiffs it down forward 1 by, you can do that. So just baiting the whiffs is a really good use of backdashing.
I think on this note as well, you hear it all the time. Oh, he got caught hitting a button. Oh, he got counter hit, because he was hitting a button. Right, well, in order to actually get counter hit, it means that the opponent is doing a move, right? So, for example, with Nina, maybe one of my strategies is to do. Oops, that was an interesting wipe the floor. I do a singular poke and then sidestep and do sidestep 2, right? Well, if Evan's hitting a button, it's likely going to hit him. But if instead he chooses to use movement and he's not hitting a button, I'm open, to all kinds of whiff punishment, for committing to that type of move, right? So again, we mentioned earlier, it's very safe. You can't get counter hit launched by a magic 4 or one of Josie's strings if you're moving, right? The worst that you're going to get is tapped. And that's just a little bit of damage. You can shrug it off and move some more, right? So that's, I think, a pretty important reason why movement is quite strong.
All right. But yeah, so as you saw earlier, like when he was jabbing, he sidestepped and I jabbed back and he launched me for it. So when you're moving, you can move backwards or you can sidestep to bait the whiffs. Sidestepping is really strong in Tekken because it makes something like a simple jab launch punishable. So another reason why you want to move would be to like maybe get into your preferred range. Like in this matchup, Heihachi is a lot more comfortable farther out than Nina is. So Nina would want to move in as close as possible, and then Heihachi would want to move out as far as possible. So that way at the farther range, Heihachi can use the electrics or back 4s or forward 3s, forward circle 2s, forward 2. Yeah. He's got a lot of really great options that have a lot of range, but they're not very useful up close because they're slow, and Nina will counter hit him.
Yeah, some characters in this game are blessed with really good options at all ranges. Like Heihachi's down forward 1 is +9 on hit. It's fast, 13 frames, and so he can control spacing really well and get into different ranges, especially with walls. Sometimes a character that typically uses a lot of distance or likes to stay at a range that might be 2 characters away, so like that mid-range, may get really up close and personal when they know they've got wall pressure. right? And having good movement allows you to close that distance quickly, and take advantage of those.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, so then another thing that you use movement for is anti-pressure.
Mm-hmm.
So like when someone's being pressured a lot, like if I'm doing a hashi and I'm like just down forward and one all day, she could try counterattacking with like a magic 4 or something like that, and that's one way to deal with pressure. But if she's hitting buttons, then she can get caught by doing something like down forward 1-2.
Yeah, or if Heihachi does a quick duck after a down forward 1, you can do all kinds of mean stuff. Look at that damage. Pretty big.
Yeah, so that's when hitting buttons can be dangerous. So instead, you can try using movement to get out of the pressure. So like if I'm just spamming down forward 1 with Heihachi, Nina can sidestep out of it pretty easily, and then do like sidestep 2 and get a punish, or she can backdash out of it and get a punish like that. So it's a lot safer to be able to get out of pressure. Depending on the situation, you might want to sidestep, you might want to backdash. If your opponent is very aware of what you're doing, like if they sees that you're trying to sidestep a lot, he'll start doing things like homing moves. So if I'm like doing this and he sidesteps, like you can do a homing move to stop that. So that's when mind games come into play.
Question?
Let's see. What about when someone is at negative frames and they sidestep? Right, so in Tekken 7, it takes you can successfully sidestep linear moves at -5 or better.
In my testing, I find that at if you're, let's just say you're at -3, you can still sidewalk very cleanly. And then I think once you get to that -4, or if the opponent has +4 or greater, 1-2s will even hit you out of your sidewalk animation. I think when it comes to negative frames, ranges also play a really, really big role in how clean you can step something.
Nina's 1+4 is -5.
Okay.
So try stepping.
Oh, step after.
Yeah, block that and step.
Oops. I get used to. He'd probably be better at this. Okay. I did it once, right?
Yeah, you did it the first time.
I'm trying to buffer pretty hard. You want to try? I'm a PC player, so I'm used to the input being 2 frames faster.
Maybe it changed it. Okay, down forward 1 works.
Yeah, it could also well, down forward 1 is 13 frames,
Yeah.
right? So maybe that 3 frame window is kind of picking up.
Yeah, well, I did it once.
Maybe. Well, we also have to consider that sometimes my jabs won't come out at frame perfect, right? If I'm not.
Why can't I step down after?
Let's try maybe a little bit of range. Like this. Well, I don't even know if it still looks like it's checking. Those are real. That might have just worked. I'm not sure. We could try. Is Heihachi's 210?
Yeah. Alright, so maybe it is -4. Maybe they switched it. Because I tested it on previous build done at NorCal Regionals. Is when I got the.
When you did some sidewalk and sidestep testing.
Yeah. Yeah. So the jury's still out on the exact number, but even when you're in small negative frames, you can still sidestep. Definitely. And depending on what move they use, like if it's a slow linear move, then you can sidestep at larger ranges, but it's more risky.
For a safe idea, if you're taking guard stun from something like a running 3, a slash kick, or something like Brian's back 1, these moves that induce a tremendous amount of guard stun, I would not recommend sidewalking or sidestepping unless you had a specific setup that you were avoiding or something like that, because most of the time you're talking some pretty severe negative frames, and if they throw out even a linear down forward 1, it'll most likely hit you while you're trying to sidewalk.
The one caveat I would say to that is that just because you're in heavy guard stun doesn't mean you're negative.
True.
Most of the time,
Most
that's
of the
true.
time.
There are some times where you're not.
Running moves generally give a tremendous amount of frame advantage, and there are a couple mid and even high options, like Leo's BOK3, where she goes into the stance and does a homing mid, is I think plus considerable, enough to make down forward 1 track.
Yeah. To answer your question, Henry, we'll move on for right now because I know it'll take a bit for you to get that question.
Yeah, don't be shy about asking follow-up questions either. We'll get to them as we move along. Yeah.
So besides anti-pressuring movement, you can use movement as an offensive pressure tool.
Mm-hmm.
So like the Mishimas are really good with this with their wave dash. I'm not really good at wave dashes, but like for example, if you know someone is trying to stay away, you can just move forward and they'll try to move back to stay away. And if you're on a walled stage, you can use that to kind of trap them against the wall. So if I'm trying to just dash forward and make pressure with electric, I can do it.
Hey, some fireworks.
Because that's a really good tool for the Mishimas.
Mm-hmm.
But once they start expecting the electrics, they might try to space out more. So I could just dash up more and then get faster.
Another big reason you do this forward movement is to elicit a button press from your opponent. If Nina is really, really confident that Heihachi is going to run up to her, she might stick out an unsafe move, or maybe even a high, something like that. So if you run up and immediately crouch, or you run up and block, and do these kinds of pressure, there's a really good chance you can get your opponent to try to stuff you. Characters with crushing down forward 2s like Josie or Jack are notorious for wanting to try to stuff out an opponent's approach. So as Heihachi against Josie, you dash forward and she pushes down forward 2, you block it, you get that down forward 1-2, 13 frame punish.
That's minus 13?
Yeah.
I thought it was 12.
No, same with Dragunov, minus 13. So
Dragunov is 13 too?
I think so.
No. Are all the crouching launchers down forward 2s minus 13?
Jack's is 14. Leo's is 13, I'm pretty sure.
Alright.
Of course, characters with the ones that are more safe, like Paul's and Laws, you have to kind of keep track of those. Minus 8 or 9, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
Safe.
Alright.
Last note on that. If you want an example of using forward movement, you need not look further than Saint. At pretty much any event in the recent months, he is incredible. He moves forward super aggressively with Jack to the point where he manages to get free wall pressure without ever pushing a button. I'm not necessarily saying you need to be Saint level to take advantage of these things, but it's very impressive to watch.
Yeah, in order to get that level of pressure, you have to have built up the Yoli for it.
Right. Yeah. Do some conditioning. Condition your opponent.
So that kind of movement is not something you see except you can high level play against players that know each other well. So defensive pressure is really useful. So like dashing up and then stopping, see if you can bait them to hit a button. Because if they feel offensively pressured, they might try to react by doing a defensive move. So another reason why you would want to move is to stay out of dangerous areas. Say, for example, if your back is to a wall, you can try sidestepping away from it. I think we should show that.
I think they can use their imagination. The only thing I would point out is that you generally want to do it in segments, so you don't want to hard commit to this long sidewalk. You want to do a sidewalk and then hold back a little bit, and sidewalk and hold back. Make sure that you're not falling victim to a homing move like something like this. You got to be ready, but the general idea is get your back away from the wall. Is a fair idea.
Right. And then another reason why you want to move is to keep your opponent's back to the wall.
Mm-hmm.
So if you see your opponent trying to move out, you can just move with them.
Right. Yeah, it's not uncommon if, say, Heihachi's back was to the wall right now, and I'm pressuring him, and I notice that he starts sidewalking in one direction, I'll move with him, in tandem, right? Obviously, in between, there's going to be a lot of this kind of poking, but generally, I'll continue to reposition in the direction that he's moving to try to keep that wall behind them.
See, there's no like mid-stage floor breaks in this game, is there?
Mid-stage?
Yeah, like in Tekken 6, there was like some areas that had floor breaks.
Oh yeah, no. In this game, the only floor breaking is on the temple.
And everything else is wall.
Everything else is walls and balconies.
So, you don't need to worry about that. All right, so now that we've talked about like how you would decide to move, or things that you would, some of the thought process that would go through your head when you're trying to figure out how to move. We should talk about when you don't want to move. Talked about a little bit about this earlier with like the significant frame disadvantage.
Mm-hmm.
So like for example, if you've got like Heihachi's running 3, so that's one of those big guard stuns moves that like if I try to down forward 1, Nina can't get out of that.
Unless it's down forward 1, which has no objective at all.
Let's see here. Does
down by 2 is like plus quite a bit. You get your.
That move is just both catch steppers.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see, down back 2, wall rising 2.
Yeah, there's no stepping out. Full crouch down forward 4.
Oh yeah.
Try doing a crouch jab and then do down forward 4. See how I'm able to sidestep that pretty cleanly. Right? But if you do down back 2 and do it, the frames are not very conducive to sidewalking there. So it ends up clipping me.
Alright, so so if you're in significant frame disadvantage, sidestepping is a lot riskier. Sometimes it can work out, like as we saw with the running 3 into the down forward 1.
Yeah, some moves are coded in a manner where they really want you to be able to step it, especially to a certain direction. I'm sure that if you did the running 3 and I tried to step in the other direction, it probably would clip me. Yeah, I can't even begin to sidewalk. Oh,
I think
that's plus 1.
That's only plus 1 now?
Yeah.
Didn't it used to be like plus 8?
Yeah, but it used to not give them a combo on normal hit either. Okay, so down forward 1 is one of those moves where they really don't want you to be able to step.
Heihachi's down forward 1.
Heihachi's down forward 1, right. Nina's, for example, tracks really, really well to her left. Or right? It tracks really well to her right?
It tracks well both ways.
Should be able to get yeah, I mean, even at plus 1, maybe? Can you try stepping the other direction? Yeah, plus 1, it seems to. Yeah. It should track, ideally, really well to her left. Yeah, so if you sidewalk down, it should hit very consistently. But if you sidewalk the other direction, it should whiff consistently. So, again, part of the problem is that, and they've cleaned it up a lot. If you played Tekken in older versions of the game, tracking was super finicky, and you could get hit at all kinds of odd points. But there are a lot of moves with tracking, slight tracking to each side, and that can go on a scale from something like Nina's down forward 1, which tracks pretty well to one side and not so well to the other, to characters like Fang, whose back 4 isn't really a homing move, but man, it certainly feels like one. Unless you're playing a character like Lily or Alyssa. Who did you mention?
Ling show you.
Ling. Yeah, I think it clips Ling.
Really?
Yeah, Lily for sure can sidewalk out of Fang's back four in one direction. So you can see you'll see a lot of odd situations where Lily's sidestep is just super fantastic, and King's down three is a great example where it has slight tracking to each side, and it'll clip Ling Xiaoyu consistently. It'll clip Nina or even some of the bigger characters, but Lily will get right around that down three, no sweat. I guess it's also important to mention the bigger your character's shoulders are, like King, Miguel, Paul, and of course Jack, Bob. You know those characters. That's a good time not to sidestep or sidewalk.
Well, like Paul's not so bad. Like Paul Miguel's not that bad. He's a little bit bigger. Actually, his left foot is the biggest part about it.
Do you think Paul and Miguel can sidewalk out of down 4-1 with Nina?
Like Hachi did. Want to try?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, you're in control.
Thanks.
Because you stole it. That's all right. I'm sure Paul can. Let's try Miguel.
Okay.
Yeah. So while we're doing this, I'll talk a little bit about another time. Another time you don't want to move is if there's no need to move. Then you don't need to move. Moving for the sake of moving isn't going to get you anywhere. Like if you're like a mile away from the opponent and backdashing, that's not going to get you anything.
I think that has a lot to do with your character's ranges that you mentioned earlier. You know, a character like Bob, who has just tremendous range, might be backdashing at a time where a character like Nina would never think about it. You know. Oh. Interesting. Yeah, so it looks like he can step it clean at +1. Try 2 down forward ones, I'm kind of curious. Yeah, Miguel did pretty well. I have a feeling King can't. That's just
King can.
King can?
Yeah, like from my experience, there's 3 basic body sizes. There's the average body size, which is everybody. Then there's Jack and Gigas, and then there's Kuma.
Eddie Gordo also not a different body size, but his sidewalk has always been gimped for unknown reasons.
Yeah. Like there are some minor body size differences. Like I was saying, like Miguel, as his left foot is big. like hold forward. Like this combo. That combo will work on Miguel. At least I got it to work on him once. But anyways.
Right. Yeah, characters can do funny things. I noticed in practice that Steve's sidestep left seems to have a little bit more evasion on King's down 3 than other characters do. So I find that I can sidestep it left, sidewalk it left clean off of I think neutral or -1, +1 scenarios, whereas most characters get clipped by King's down 3. So that's kind of interesting. This is starting to get a little bit into more like case by case and advanced stuff, but there is a rather interesting element in that after certain moves, even if the frame data would suggest otherwise, you can still get different results from tracking. So King is rather odd in that you know, his standing 2 and his standing 1 are both +1, but just the way that they leave King's body is slightly different. So down forward 2 is the start of his. It's a 13 frame mid with good frames. It has a series. You can't sidestep it on a certain direction after anything that ends in a 2. So King's 1-2 into down forward 2 will track at -1, but a standing 1 into down forward 2 will not track one side. And you can take that same, or did I say -1? I meant +1. So standing 1, standing 2 are both +1, but they both produce a different result when it comes to down forward 2's tracking to one side. I'm sure Alex Monstroso loves to hear stuff like this. That's his favorite. But you don't really have to worry too much about that, especially in the scope of things. You want to improve your movement. You want to do the standard, side walking and backdashing. But you'll find that with lots of training room time, and if you know somebody you want to beat, like I never want to lose to Dustin in a tournament in my life. So when it comes to King, I'll pay attention to every detail, on how he tracks. That way I can sidewalk and launch him. So things like that are ways to get an edge in Tekken. They're a little bit more advanced and probably out of the scope, situational stuff, but
Right.
worth knowing. Worth knowing that they exist.
Right. So there's a lot of little things in Tekken that a lot of people don't know about,
Mhm.
and you might find out something, and yeah, you can use it as an advantage. Yeah. So, was there? Can you think of any other reason why don't need to move? You got a significant disadvantage, and there's no need to it.
Yeah, I had an idea. So on certain characters that are particularly gimmicky, like Eddie and Ling, characters with really good mix-ups, you really want to stress the movement initially to keep them out, keep them away from you, and set up your opportunities to counterpoke. But once they've successfully gotten on top of you, and they're at that point blank one range, and especially if Ling's in AOP, sometimes movement can be pretty dangerous. A lot of times you're a lot better looking for, fuzzy guard opportunities or just really stressing, low parrying an option, things like that. And if you're moving, you can still get away with it. I think it's difficult to cover every option, but I think that some extra care and caution around those kinds of characters can be good.
It's really hard to low parry from the back end.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just the pacing, I guess, or the way just the way your character moves. I find it particularly easy to low parry and move out of neutral guarding and things like that. Maybe it's just because my hand is more relaxed. Hard to say. But you're right. Backdashing, especially if blocking is involved, it's difficult to immediately low parry or immediately duck out of a string like that.
So DT Flip asks, any pro tips for not just getting lost and staring into Miguel's chest hair? So one pro tip is keep him on the right-hand side.
Mm-hmm.
That way he's facing away.
Yeah, get that back to the screen.
Yeah. Another one is we've got customs. You can customize things. Yeah. Kingdom asks, or states, so basically keep Ling out and avoid her bullshit. That is against a good Ling player with good movement. That is a tall order.
Hey, another follow.
We got another follow. We got Gang TM. I'm assuming that's Gang TM.
Sounds like a Pokemon trainer. TM01 TM.
Yeah, so like against Ling, you're gonna have to know. You're gonna have to deal with her bullshit, and there's no way around it. You're just gonna have to deal with it. And movement can be helpful.
Yeah, you aspire to do the best you can, to keep her out and move her on, and you accept that there will be times where she'll get in if she's, competent player, and you're just kind of trying to assign, we talk about like when not to move or when to move, and you really want to be purposeful, right? You want to assign your movement decisions based on what's actually going on the screen. So I think, especially at a range something like this against Ling, movement is super good because you're avoiding things like her running 3, which is just super buff. Oh, another follow!
Yeah. Solid Centenaro. Solid Centenaro.
Hey, thank you.
Is there a Solidus Centenaro too? And a Liquid Centenaro?
Yeah, but as the situation changes, as she maybe gets in with a California roll, movement might not be her best option there. You might be looking to do things like this, keep her out with a knee,
down 4.
Down 4, yeah, just poke her out of it. So just like Evan said, you don't want to be moving just for the sake of moving. Especially on wall stages, you want to be really careful that you don't just backdash into the wall. A smart player will see you backdashing and he'll just run forward, and that's how that's a quarter of the level that you've already given up.
Yeah. Or he'll just use his offensive movement pressure to back you into the wall.
Mm-hmm.
Here's Kendrum asks, like, when I'm playing against King, you're supposed to sidestep right, but for some reason this man seems to clip my sidewalk. Well, that would really depend on the situation and the moves. He could be using a homing move, in which case you'll always get your sidewalk.
King also, it's really important to know, Tekken players like to put things, I shouldn't say Tekken players, gamers. We like to put things in boxes, right? And so saying something like, you know, stepping to King's right, is that, or was it stepping right or stepping to King's right, is what you should be doing. But the truth is that King has a multitude of ways of comfortably, safely tracking both directions. You know, down 3 we mentioned earlier, right? Tracks very comfortably. Down forward 2 tracks pretty well to both sides, but tracks especially well to 1, whereas down forward 1 tracks perfectly to the other side. You mentioned homing moves, forward 4, you know. Back 1 clips on one side and not the other. You know, it's so... Ah! The follow trade! We need one of those little graphics that's like a combo.
Oh, no.
Kankle.
Kankle.
What up? But, yeah. You know, so if you're having trouble sidewalking King, you got to take it piece by piece. You know, for sure. Yeah, with every character. You know, it's nice to have a general trend that you want to be moving that direction, but definitely don't be surprised when you're really compensating for his like down forward 2, and then he drops the down forward 1 on your head. You know, you should expect to get clipped at that point. Something you could pass along to Alex for sure. Monstroso. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess the point is, to shorten down the story, don't just do the same thing always, because there are options for everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the realignment, right?
Oh, yeah.
Tekken, the initial part of your sidewalk is very evasive. So it, you know, if you're doing it out of something like guard stun, where you know they're poking you and you're buffering in that movement, it's very evasive. But if if you're not talking guard stun, if Nina just starts sidewalking and I just run up to her, oh, 1-2 tracks no sweat. Of course, Miguel's a little funny, but you know, even down forward 1-1, which we just saw earlier that it works just fine at dodging, right? You know, if you realign, it will clip you. You know, so that's also worth. If you're struggling getting clipped to one side with any character, you know, you might want to consider: are you sidewalking specific pokes out of guard stun, or are you sidewalking, crossing your fingers that the move he throws out won't clip you? You know, that's worth paying attention to for sure.
Let's see. Kankle says, "This is my first Tekken and I have somehow reached green. My movement sucks, so this is amazing." Well, I'm glad we could help you out there, Kankle.
Hey.
Let's see. I only have 50 wins, and this guy tonight had crazy sidesteps. Totally changed how I viewed the game. Yeah, sidestepping is really strong in Tekken. It's one of the a good way to deal with a lot of pokes, since a lot of pokes don't track very well.
I think sidestepping and sidewalking also play right into the hands of players who have good reactions. You know, reaction to visual stimuli, I guess. I don't know what you would call it. You know, if you're fast at visually confirming, you know, when I was a younger man, I did that with Lily all the time. I was like notorious for sidestep into down 3+4 launches. You know, but back then I had that, you know, that razor sharp, you know, sidestep and see them press a button and then just, you know, immediately launch. Now I'm like hoping, I cross my fingers.
Although with the sidestep down 3+4, if they do anything that hits.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I don't know if it is in this game, but Tekken 6, Tekken 5, I started doing it in Tekken 5.
Yeah, Kenji doesn't use it as much as you did, but he's also wasn't as he's not as big of a risk taker. But like, I don't think I've ever seen it get blocked.
Yeah, I mean, when you push it, you should be pushing it at a time where you know it's going to hit. You know, that was my thing. And you don't just lob it out there. That's when you start getting eaten alive by better players.
Right.
For sure.
All right. Let's see here. So, moving on to the next topic then. What to do when you pull off a successful movement. Yeah. So, yeah. After once you start getting an understanding of what you're doing, like backdashing and sidestepping. You need to be able to punish your opponent for your successful movement. So if you like backdashed away, you have to be ready for a whiff punish. So know what your character's whiff punishes are. Like someone like Nina's got great ones, like back 1+4 or down 3+4, have a lot of range. All right. Some characters don't get don't have long range launches. Sometimes you get like Bob gets forward 2-4 on a lot of things.
Yeah, yeah. Speed has a lot to do with it as well, right? So Bob's forward 2-3 has a lot of range and it's fast. It's 12 frames, so you can get fantastic quick with punishes. Because as you start to improve your movement, one of the things that you'll see is that players will bait your whiff punisher out, right? They'll know your whiff punisher of choice might not be safe, like Nina's back 1+4. So if they stick out a quick move and by the time it comes back to their body, you can't whiff punish it. So speed and range are really probably the two things you're looking for different whiff punishers. Steve doesn't do a lot of damage with his whiff punishers, but Sonic Fang has tremendous range and it's super fast, 14 frames. So it's always worth keeping in mind. You want to. We talked a little bit about best case scenario, right? So if Nina whiffs like crazy, I might get something like that, right? If she whiffs a big move right in front of my face. But and even then, that's a little dubious. But you can short you can or that kind of thing. But if it's just a quicker move, and I'm bracing for it, I want to be ready to Sonic Fang, depending on the range,
Like Magic 4s.
Yeah, Magic 4 is so hard to punish, that that's what a lot of people will use to bait out your whiff punisher. You might be able to pull it off, especially on PlayStation. It's a bit dubious. You're talking pretty tight on the input, for punishing. But Bob, who's forward 2-3, is much faster than Steve's Sonic Fang by 2 frames. Might be able to pull that off.
Alright, so DT Flip asks, how the hell does Steve look older? Cryo sleep does wonders for the skin.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Nina was in cryo sleep for 30 years. She's actually 52 years old at this point.
Probably some genetic enhancements going on there too, maybe. Super strength?
Yeah.
Maybe?
But yeah, so that's why Nina looks young for being Steve's mom.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's what your question was. Let's see, then Kinkle says, just found the stream but have to go to sleep. Does it work? Can't wait to view the VOD tomorrow. Yep. So the VOD will be up on this channel for 2 weeks. I'm going to get it also posted to the Seattle Tekken YouTube channel. I might edit slow parts out. We'll see.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Glad you found us, and hopefully we helped. And keep subscribed or you did subscribe. Stay tuned for more of this stuff at some point in the future.
What to do after successful movement.
Right.
So how about like sidewalking?
Right. So sidewalking, sometimes like if you sidewalk a big move, you can get around to their side or back, like you do the Steve jab, then forward 2. Back. Well,
one direction. Maybe I'll do down forward 1 and then 1-2 unstring.
Okay. Wow, that get around as far as I thought it would.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be kind of specific. I know that like on certain setups with like Eddie Gordo's Power Crush, you can sidewalk it very clean, and when you end up at their back, you don't want to be Steve Fox and just get this little Sonic thing. We're talking 28 damage, or 1-1-2 does more than that, right? But if you know your character well, and you get to somebody's back, you can learn things like 2-1 into this is guaranteed. That's a massive difference in damage output, right?
And that's just the launch. You get a full combo after.
Oh yeah. You launch, then you do your full combo, right? Josie has some strings that I know that connect to each other in back turns, so it looks really weird, but she gets 7 hits on your back. 1-2-2 into the Lancaster combo, which is 4-hit string, a lot of damage on the back. Nina, I don't know if she still has it, but didn't she used to have like 4-3-2 or that series looks pretty good. Does Sidewalk 4-3-2 work anymore?
Sidewalk 4-3-2?
Yeah, on their back?
Yeah, it does, but oops. So you can get something like that.
Mm-hmm. And that's off of an 11 frame standing 4 punish. So once you've walked around their unsafe string, you can do pretty good things to their back, but you have to be ready. You have to know what your character can do.
Alright, so Flaw says he's new to Tekken, which we know is not true.
You're in the right place. Oh, maybe not. Who's Flaw?
Well, well, he kind of skipped out on the end attack too, but he was lives up north, plays Eddie.
Hello, Flaw.
But you do have a question: does everyone have the same speed in this game?
Speed?
Speed, yeah. I guess that depends on what you mean by speed. Different characters have different moves that happen at different speeds. But pretty much everyone has like a 10 frame move, 11 frame move, 12 frame move.
So, yeah, I mean, if we're getting really technical, the frames are the number of animation, per flicker, or however you want to call it. There's 60 frames in a second. That a move will have. So almost I think every character has access to 10, right? Which are usually jabs for most characters.
Yeah, Jax is not a jab, but it's for the palm.
Yeah, he has like the palm where he sticks his hand out. That's 10, right? So as far as executing moves, they all have the same speed. I think that characters' movement might be a little bit different. I feel like the men backdash smoother or faster. What do you think?
Yeah, different characters definitely have different backdash speeds. Despite, like, Harada had said that they even them out.
This is Nina Williams.
Hey, Carcius, thanks for the follow.
Carcius.
But there's definite differences in speed. Like, Elisa's still got a really good one. Eddie's got a super good one. Nina's and Eliza's are kind of meh. Devil Jin's is kind of meh.
Yeah, it can be a little tricky when it comes into it, and like we were talking earlier about the more character specific, the niche things. Nina and Lily might be similar stature. Nina and like Alyssa are similar stature, but Alyssa and Lily both sidewalk better. Is that faster? I'm not really sure faster is the right way to describe it, but it is a difference.
Yeah.
But I think that especially if you're approaching the game to get good, these are all things that kind of flutter in the back of your mind and don't deserve a lot of attention. I think Tekken in general, the laws are pretty consistent, especially for up and coming players. You just, there will be the individual annoyances that clip you from time to time, but as far as games go, I don't think Tekken disappoints. Move well, backdash with punish. Sidewalk a string and then launch their back. If your opponent does a 10 frame unsafe move, know that everybody has. Even Asuka with just one punch has a 10 frame, speed wise. So,
Alright. So anything else we can do if we move successfully? We've got whiff punishes, we've got
sidewalking strings to their back.
Strings to their back. We could use it to apply pressure. Like pushing people back to the walls, like that. We talked about that. So yeah, that's a lot of the basics of movement. So one of the things we did want to do is give you some things. Hey, PG Ame. Is it PG Ame? Let me know if I said that right. Thanks for the follow.
I think Ame is rain in Japanese.
Nihongo. It's not rated R rain, it's rated PG rain. Like film ratings, PG, R, G.
And then what's the rain? Oh, they're PG.
Yeah.
Ah, yes. You got me.
Alright, bad jokes. Alright, so we wanted to give some practical things that you can do at home to practice some of these things. So you're in control, so you're gonna have to go to set this one up. So first off, what you would do is you would go to practice mode. We're in practice mode, so we'll go to. I guess I'll do this. Go to practice mode. We're gonna practice doing the stair step back dash. So pick your character, whichever character you want. I'm gonna pick Nina because that's who I play. And then you want to pick Lee as your opponent. Lee or Violet. You want to go to an infinite stage because you're going to be backdashing a lot. The stair step backdash is an easier version of the Korean backdash. It's not as good, but it's really easy to do. You can get good at it in minutes instead of hours. So for a lot of new players, this is a lot better option to start off with.
It's also really good to have in your pocket if you're like in a panicky situation. You just need to move quickly, and I think a lot of people do a quick backdash sidestep and then they Korean backdash cancel.
Yeah. So just to overview, the stair step backdash is you backdash first off, then you sidestep down, and then backdash. So you just use this to create the space.
Mm-hmm.
So you can see the command history down below. So then, anyways, once you're in practice mode on an infinite stage, you have lead. You have to go to opponent action. You have him do repeat action. Repeat action 1. You go to move list and you look for the missed step down here. Missed step somewhere down here. Missed step. There you go. Set the interval to normal. And then you hit the pad and circle to have him start doing it. So you'll see he'll do that little misstep thing every so often. So what you do is you just practice doing this. Try to stay away from it. This is pretty easy to do. So just stay away from him.
What happens if you speed him up?
When you speed him up one more, it becomes really hard to get away.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Go, Evan, go!
Yeah, I mean, in order to get away from him in this speed, you have to do the Korean backdash cancel.
So it's something you can work towards.
Yeah.
You can start on normal lead difficulty and work your way up to turbo lead.
That was going to be a different episode.
Oh.
But yeah, so so normal speed while you're doing the stair step, and then just and then practice doing this.
Mm-hmm.
Until you're comfortable with it. Like I said, you should be able to do this after 10-15 minutes of practice without a problem. And then also practice on the other side, because on pad it's not that big of a deal because it's just the same motions different way. But if you're on stick, like Jabo said, it's a very different motion on your wrist.
Mm-hmm.
But it's good to be able to practice on both sides just to make sure you got it.
I think also if you are getting inconsistencies in your stair stepping, slow down. Make sure that each input is correct, and your command history looks something like Evan's, right, where you see a very consistent pattern.
Yeah,
right?
so in order to get that command history, you hit start, you go to display settings, and command history is the first one. I'm pointing at the screen, but you can't see that. Yeah, so the command history is right there. You can display it or hide it, so you can see what your inputs are getting. So like if you're seeing stuff like this there, that means you're not getting the stair step right. But it should just be back, down, back, down. Let's see. The stair step and Korean backdash grant different advantages. Well, the Korean backdash is better. It's the better version, but it takes hours upon hours of practice to get good at. And a lot of people, when they're first starting out playing the game, they don't want to sit down and work on this one technique for 100 hours before they start really playing the game. Mm-hmm. So this is the version that you use while you're learning the game.
Mm-hmm. And I think also, especially when a player who has more history in Tekken sits down and plays against somebody, and they can see that the person is using movement of any kind, I think you have a much more optimistic or bright future for that player, and I find myself much more willing to work with them, and because you're seeing the first steps of movement and control of your character's spacing, and so it's really, really good, and a good way to differentiate yourself from other beginners who might not have access to any kind of movement. If you have I know it seems to be a rare thing in fighting games nowadays, but if you have somebody that you're really close to in skill level, and you are not already implementing some kind of movement, do the stair stepping and watch, and you watch them whiff. You'll be able to smack them right out of the air, with some whiff punishment, and it'll be a pretty big game changer for sure.
The electric expenses, can you get by with just stair stepping in a competitive sense? Probably. You did stair stepping for a long time. But yeah, it's less effective than the Korean backdash canceling, so you're not going to see any of the top players doing it because the top players have already put thousands of hours into the game.
Yeah.
100-hour learning how to Korean backdash cancel is just a drop in the bucket at that point.
Right. Part of being a legacy game for sure.
Yeah.
I wouldn't get discouraged in the slightest if you can't Korean backdash cancel. Not even in the slightest.
Right. Also, by practicing doing the stair step, it's very similar to the Korean backdash execution-wise. And so by practicing the stair step, you are practicing the initial steps of the Korean backdash cancel.
Yeah, you're getting it into your system for sure. I think that it's worth saying, throwing out there on pretty much any educational video that like a game like Tekken, which is really massive in terms of the number of ways that you need to improve. Right, they're all over the place. There's a lot of layers, right, and movement is just one of them. So if you're trying to get competitive, if you have your stair stepping movement, but you're also really solid on your knowledge of frame data, you're consistent with your combos, you're not dropping combos, you know your character's ranges really well. If you've got a balanced spread of skill set, I would take that any day over just a slightly more efficient movement. I know that there are a couple players who have just beautiful mechanics, but they really struggle in the nitty gritty. Whether it be consistency or otherwise. So it's grow into it. Start with the stair step. It's good. There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah. It will carry you a long ways.
It won't be the bottleneck of your competitive experience at Tekken, I don't think. At least not for a long time.
Yeah. And you'll know it when you get there.
Oh yeah, and by then your hands will just naturally be Korean backdash canceling, I think. I had to guess.
Alright, so yes. So we have a lot of people in chat saying that they used to do the stair stepping until recently. But it's good stuff to start on. The only reason why we mentioned the Korean backdash canceling is because that's everywhere. And a lot of people say you've got to learn the Korean backdash cancel, otherwise you're not going to be good. And that's just not true.
Yeah, no, that's false. There's also a lot of prestige in it, right? That should be noted. When a player puts in their 100 hours to get this Korean backdash cancel, they want to make sure that there's some recognition for it. So that tends to find its way through conversation.
Yeah, but I'm of the mindset, spend the time doing what will improve you the fastest first.
80-20 rule.
Yep. Yeah. So Korean backdash canceling won't improve you significantly over stair step backdashing for a long time. So that's the backwards movement practice. Then we were going to talk about the sidestepping out of guard stun. So on this one, we're going to go back to character select, practice mode, and this time we're going to pick Nina as the opponent. So first off, pick whichever character you want. Do you have a character you like?
Anybody but Jack, probably, or Bears. This exercise, you'll want to pick a character that has at least a semi-neutral body type.
All right, so let's go
Claudio.
with Claudio.
Fantastic.
My first time playing Claudio.
Yeah, you sullied your console.
So Chisel says, there's an optimal speed versus distance to achieve. There was a recent tool-assisted video showing this.
Yeah.
Like if you cancel your backdash too fast with the down back, you don't move back very far. But if you do it too late, then you start decelerating. So there is a frame perfect best Korean backdash canceling, but don't worry about that.
Right. Yeah. I mean, at that point, you're calling everything frame perfect. You know, every little movement. Do it's comfortable, and a lot of it also has to do with what your how your, I don't want to say like modular, it sounds weird, but if your backdashes are shorter and faster, your brain tends to be able to react quicker in each of those instances. So after I backdash each time, I'm kind of like refreshing, right? I'm looking for a whiff punish, I'm looking maybe to sidewalk, I'm looking to do these different things. If I do these long hops backwards, you know, there's more time in between each hop where I might freeze up if somebody does, you know, runs at me or does something like that. Just a thought.
Alright, so we've got Machisel posted the Twitter on the tool assisted thing.
Sweet.
I'll click on that and look at that later. Electrifying 65 asks, are other movement tools useful like Heihachi's fadeaway step or Lars's backflip? Yes, but those are more niche areas. Like Heihachi's fadeaway is really good to kill the last 5 seconds of a round, but not much else.
I think the problem is how committed you are when you execute those things. Like King's Jaguar step back, you know, once you've pushed those buttons, you're committed, right? Whereas backdash canceling, the cool thing about it is that you're not committed to anything, right? At any point you can block any direction. At any point you can push any button and get any move, like we showed earlier. You know, so it's kind of all around useful, solid in that regard. Whereas
there are some characters have evasion options like backsways or sidestep evasion moves that evade better in that way than just a straight backdash or a sidestep. And those are useful tools. Like Asuka's sidestep 2 is a really good evasive tool. That move evades everything.
Yeah, Fang's up forward 2 is so frustrating. -10 and it pushes back so far.
There are uses for those moves, but those are character specifics, and we're talking generals here.
And you're also assigning those to specific situations, whereas movement, I feel, you weave it into every part of your game. You know, if you're doing it right. So. Yeah.
So anyways, moving on to the second step, we're gonna practice. Practice stepping out of guard stun. So what you're gonna want to do. Hopefully this works because I didn't test it beforehand. Well, we just tested it earlier.
We did it with King and Miguel, so it should work.
So you want to go to the action settings again. CPU opponent action. You want to repeat action, like we had be doing this step. But this time we're not going to do a move list. We're going to do a record. So here you can control your opponent and record their movements. So here I'm now controlling Nina. You can start recording by hitting the pad and circle, touchpad and circle. So it starts recording, you got a timer going down, just do 2 down forward ones in rapid succession.
You can mash those out.
Yeah, you can mash those out. So now when you play it back, you can do the touchpad circle, and then Nina will do those moves. So what you do is you block the first one and step the second one. And just practice doing that.
You want to get used to inputting the motion or the movement as the block stun is kind of fading away from your character. Tekken has a very generous window where you can buffer your movement. You can input it early into the guard stun. And it allows you to get out of these kinds of options. You should only be able to track one or step one way.
Yeah. So in this one, you want to step to your left.
Extra credit if you do this with a character you specifically have trouble with. I know somebody mentioned King earlier. So extra credit if you go into the record function with King and test some of these moves. What can you sidewalk out of, right? Yeah,
so I mean, this is just getting used to the timing of when you can press buttons after a block stun.
Did you just get out of that by sidewalking down?
Yeah. I told you can do it.
Oh, yeah. Probably range. If she's close to you, you probably can't. At that range, you probably.
That's right.
Tekken.
Yeah. That's one of those things where it's just. It's one of those things where it's a little bit inconsistent. You just got to deal with it. But yeah, so practice that. Don't forget to practice it on both sides.
Mm-hmm. Two throws generally switch you screen perspective, so kind of nice.
Yeah. So on this one, I'm stepping to the left, which is down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, pay attention to your orientation. You know, makes a big difference.
Yep.
Also with throws, if you ever practice throw breaking, I know that's not in the scope, but worth paying attention to the different sides as they do, you know, tend to appear visually slightly different.
Right. So also, bonus practice mode tip is if you don't know how to switch sides, if you go to the restart settings on top, you can do switch positions on, and when you restart, you will start on the other side. So you can do it that way too. Alright, so we've got another bit of homework that you could do if you choose to. This one will be a little bit more difficult because it involves going into actual practice or actual matches. I recommend doing this in ranked, but it's but expect to lose these matches. Don't go into these matches expecting to win. The reason why I say go into ranked is because the opponent's going to try to win. And so if you're doing something stupid, they won't be like stop and be like, hey, what's up? They're just gonna beat you for it. But that's kind of the point here is so practice doing various types of movements. Like first off, you might try just backdashing away from them and trying to whip punish them, and just see how well that works. Another thing you can do is you can dash into their face and then try to use sidestepping to avoid their attacks. That one will probably get you hit a lot more because there's a lot more things that will hit you there. But that way you get a really good idea of what you can get in and out of. It's better to try to sidestep after blocking an attack than getting hit by an attack.
Yeah, a lot of hits in this game will leave them +5 or higher, you know, so a character is down forward 1, just an average character, might be -2 or -1 on block, but then when it hits you, you're looking in the +5, 6, or in Heihachi's case, 9, so that'll affect how you sidestep. A lot of people use the word taking turns, and I think that's pretty appropriate, especially when you're starting Tekken.
Yeah.
You block a move and kind of your turn to do something. If you get hit, you should freeze up.
That's one of those general rules that gets thrown out pretty quickly, but when you're learning, it's a good way of thinking of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So but yeah. So after your if you get your opponent trying to use moves specifically to stop you from sidestepping in when you're dashing in their face, that means you've done a really good job. Because that means you're forcing them to adapt to your movement. In which case, then you can use fast counter hit moves to hit them out of their slow homing move.
And as we mentioned earlier, make sure that you're not just doing the movement, but that you're looking for that best case scenario, right? In your mind, what's a dream scenario? Is it sidestep hop kick, sidestep down forward 2, right? You should really, really, really be focused on capitalizing on the advantages you create with your movement.
And then another thing you can do in a ranked match is you try to use your offensive movement to push them back. This one is really hard to do, especially against, especially on online ranked, because a lot of online ranked players like to hold forward and mash buttons. So it's impossible to get them to move back, but it could be something to do when you're playing. If you've got someone you like to play with regularly, and once they start to get to know each other's gameplay, that's something we can start using there. Yeah, so that's what we would like to try to another follow. Alan Coolit, thank you for the follow.
Woohoo! Go Alan!
Alright, so we're going to be doing some closing thoughts here pretty soon. Or we're going to be doing some closing thoughts. If you have any questions, make sure you get them asked now, otherwise we might not get to them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so closing thoughts here. So in Tekken, movement is pretty execution heavy. It'll take a lot of practice to get really good at it, which is one of the reasons why we like to start off with the stair-stepping method, because it's a lot easier to backdash than doing the Korean backdash cancel. But it's a large part of the game, and if done well, it has a lot of rewards. Alright, so let's see here. What beats backdash in Tekken? In Street Fighter, you beat backwards blocking by walking forwards, blows, and attacks that are plus on block. So I don't think there's anything that significantly beats backdashing. Moving forward does move faster than moving backwards in Tekken. So you can always move forward.
Yeah, for every forward dash, it's like 3 back dashes. So if you want to close the distance, it's pretty fast if you move forward.
Yeah, but moving forward is a risk in itself, because you're opening yourself. As long as you're moving forward and not holding back, you can get hit.
Right, you got to put in some checks.
Right. So backdashing in Tekken is a really safe defensive tool.
I think if there was a way to beat it, if you're just looking for an advantage, I would pay really close attention to the wall areas, right? So if your opponent is backdashing, we can assess that as, you know, they're looking to whiff punish you, or maybe they're just trying to get away from you, which is fine too. But most of the time they're trying to whiff punish you. So to not fall into that trap, you really want to know your own ranges. If you're really, really comfortable with how far does your down forward 4 reach, you know, how far does your, running moves, reach if you input the running move. Knowing these ranges is really, really important if they're backdashing. But I would also say that just cautiously moving forward, there's only good to be reaped from that, right? If they're backdashing like a maniac backwards, you kind of just follow them. They can't backdash forever except for on an infinite stage. But you have a lot of time in each round, and you can pick your moment and know your ranges. But that's one of the reasons why people praise movement so much, is that there isn't really a weakness to it. It's if done correctly, you'll always be moving. It's hard to hit you, and yeah, a lot of skill ceiling to be had in movement.
Yeah. All right. So then, also, next closing thought is always make sure you have a reason for your movement.
Mm-hmm. Very important.
Yeah, if you're moving forward, why are you moving forward? Are you trying to close the distance? Are you trying to get into range for your attacks? Are you trying to push them back towards the wall? Are you trying to get them to throw a keep out move? Why are you moving forward? Same thing with backdashing. Backdashing, are you trying to get away from their preferred range? Are you trying to get into your preferred range? Are you trying to make them whiff? Same with sidestepping, trying to make them whiff. Are you trying to keep their back to the wall? Are you trying to get your back away from the wall? There's always a good reason to move in Tekken. It's just you need to make sure you are using it. You have a good reason. Well, except for in those situations where we covered earlier, where you don't want heavy blocks done and what was it? Blocks done and
you're talking just frame disadvantage, like getting hit.
And, yeah.
Wall situations, stuff like that.
Yeah.
I think the more decisions you can actually make in your brain in any kind of PvP game, fighting games or otherwise, the closer you're going to get to like a higher level of competitive play. If I'm purposefully, I say to myself, I'm going to backdash here because I think they're going to do a get-up kick. So I backdash and then they do that get-up kick and I uppercut them, right? I've taken one big step forward to becoming a much stronger fighting game player, right? Because I'm associating a decision with an action, right? But if instead I was just backdashing and I'm not actually, having a purpose for it, I'm just showing off that I can backdash. You're not making decisions. You're not actively trying to reap rewards for your choices and things like that. So it's good. Always have a purpose.
Also, when you're moving, always be aware of your surroundings and where the walls are, where your opponent is. You generally don't want to sidestep so that your back is to the wall. There are certain situations where you might want to, like if you're Leo and you've got that throw that will wall spot you from back, but that's also being aware of your surroundings. Also, just be aware of your surroundings because you don't want to get yourself into a worse position than you currently are.
Yeah, making decisions like Leo's throw where she pushes you back into the wall, or King's, or even if your character, if you know what happens when your opponent breaks a throw, right? A lot of characters will position change after a certain throw breaks. I think King, off the top of my head, is a 1 throw. So if King's back's to the wall and he really wants to get out of there, you can purposefully do a 1 throw, and if you break it, you get a switch. And so I think that's a good point. Being aware of your surroundings.
And so, see, your movement can be used for defensive purposes, offensive purposes, or to turn a defensive situation into an offensive one. So, defensively, you're using it to backdash away from your opponent or to sidestep away from pokes. But when you sidestep away from pokes, you're hoping to turn that into an offensive situation by whiff punishing.
Mm-hmm.
And also, when you're backdashing away, if you can get far enough away and they whiff a move, you can go back on the defensive.
And another thing that maybe we didn't stress enough is that you don't need it to be a grand, big whiff punishment play, right? I don't think it needs to be that. A lot of the times, if you sidestep a string, you're playing, say, Nina or even Claudio, and you sidestep something, but it's a quick move. You might feel more comfortable just sticking out a down forward 1. And then again, that turns your defensive movement into that offensive situation. Your down forward 1 checks them or hits, and then you can continue your offense. It doesn't have to be this grand, just frame skyrocket with punish, every time. It can be a simple, stuff out move or a quick poke or, these kinds of things.
And also, movement is just one tool in your toolbox. Movement by itself won't win you any games. You have to tie everything else that we're talking into your offense, your defense, your poking, your whiff punishment. You have to tie that all in together. It's just that movement is kind of the glue that holds everything together. Because in order to be good at doing all the rest of Tekken, you have to move there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you notice that your opponent doesn't have good movement skills, then as the competitor, it becomes very easy to do whatever you want and always know that be reassured that it'll find its way to their, you don't have to worry about ranges. You're never really under that kind of pressure. So. I think some of the best examples, especially in tournaments, when somebody gets stomped, is when they are too afraid to move. Right? When you get your opponent too afraid to move, they become open to tons of baiting scenarios where you bait out a button press, or they get exposed to 50-50s all day long. That's one of the cool things about movement, right? Is you could take a mid to low mix up that's too fast for the eye to read, right? Like down forward 1 and down 4 or down back 3 or something like that, right? It's a little bit too fast for you to read on reaction, so you have to, or I should say read on reaction, see on reaction, so you're making a read at this point. But with movement, you might be able to, subvert that altogether, right? You might just be able to move out of that mix up, right? And so your options become much more diverse. Yep.
And then another thing we covered before is that characters have different backdash sizes and different sidestep evasionness.
Mm-hmm.
So just keep that in mind when you're doing stuff.
Yeah.
That doesn't necessarily make, just because a character has a bad backdash doesn't make them a bad character. It just means that you have to work a bit harder to get away.
Yeah, they're typically balanced in different ways. If except for with certain characters like Kuma, it's much compensation.
This is probably the best version of Kuma ever.
Sure. Yeah,
so
he's a lot stronger. Full combo off hell sweep, good frames on Kuma's range.
And his feet are back farther.
Oh, that, yeah.
Even farther.
Oh.
even farther.
Yeah.
I think I don't. Let's see. I think Dragonoff's down too. It like has a really hard time hitting me.
Mhm. Yeah, I had to change one of my Josie combos for that.
Yeah. Anyways, on this went about half an hour longer than I expected it to.
But it's good content.
It is good content. And so I think we're about done saying what we wanted to do here. So we're probably going to be closing up the interview section.
Thank you for the
Yeah,
follows.
thank you for the follows. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned more for more of the stuff. It'll probably be on Wednesdays. Probably not every Wednesday because it's a lot of work to get this stuff set up. You got my own channel is the_silence. You can find it down below in the list of Tekken streamers. I stream not on Wednesdays on that channel. I don't have a set streaming schedule though, so just follow it and just.
Hey, one more came in.
Another one came in. Thank you, Omega Pirate. Oh, that's not Omega. That's
Omega Pirate.
Omega Pirate. All right. Hopefully we got your name right. Yeah. Do you have any social medias that you do?
That's all kind of being reworked for me on my side, so maybe in another video I'll have it ready. You hit me up on the Seattle Tekken Facebook group.
Yeah, the Seattle Tekken Facebook group. There's questions you have if you want to find that. There's questions that you should answer if you want to get in. Just don't answer them like you're a robot, and we'll probably let you in. But if you don't get in right away, check for a message because we message people that we have questions about. And Facebook is terrible about letting you know, so you have to manually check your messages in the weird spots. Yeah, so we'll be doing Thursday streaming on this channel, our offline session at Super Smash Games. You can stop by if you wanted to get some offline games.
Yeah, if you can make it to the Tacoma area Thursday evenings. Pretty accessible off the freeway. Lots of setups usually. Good place to play.
Yep. And then Tuesdays we're up in GameWorks from 6 p.m. until 11 p.m. I think we're gonna go ahead and close this stream down, and so thanks for watching, thanks for all the talking, and catch you guys later.
Yeah.